Welcome to another photo mishmash. This is episode 11, where we are going to gaze into our fisheye crystal balls and predict the future of cameras and photography.
Okay.
That's right. That reminds me I should look up what the people said on Facebook. But we'll get to that in a minute. Let's dive into news first. Do you want to go first with your news article? Or you want me to go with my first news article?
I think you should go first.
Okay. I think the first thing that's fun to lead off with or interesting is that, over the last couple of weeks, we've touched on at different points how to make money with photography, and really just touched on it because those are huge topics, huge subjects. And one of the things that we have poo-pooed probably several times now is kind of selling your images. That's just not, it's a hard way to make a living in photography. Contrast that with the article or the story this past week of the Instagrammer who sold his photography via Instagram and PayPal in one day for $15,000. Pretty significant chunk of change. So a little bit of a background, because you hear that headline and you think, wow, I'm going to get rich when I sell my pictures. First off, he had not a huge following, 40,000 followers. And at one point in the not so distant past, Gawker named him the best photographer on Instagram. So he kind of had curated this following of people who were interested in his photography. He hit his 34th birthday and said, I'm going to celebrate today. I'll sell any one of my prints that you want as a 4x6 for $150.
Pretty good birthday gift, if you ask me.
It's not bad. So he had people write in and say, I want this one or that one or this one, and sent them PayPal invoices, and it totaled up $15,000. Now, the pessimist skeptic in me right away wonders, did everybody pay up? It's pretty easy to say, yeah, I want that one, and then that 150 comes in, and you're holding your credit card, and you're looking at these 4x6s. So the question is, you might be wondering, what do these pictures look like that somebody would pay $150 for a 4x6 for?
What do they look like?
They are kind of street snapshots.
Okay.
They're artsy fartsy is how I would describe them. They're people on the street, not necessarily composed very cleanly or carefully, which some could argue is part of the moment in the capture.
Yeah.
I'll put a link to his Instagram down below. But I think you should follow our Instagrams. We'll never force you to pay $150 for our pictures.
He didn't force anyone to pay.
That's a good point. I'm just jealous.
Also, yeah, I mean, it sounds like it. And then also I think that, just because you don't find those pictures to be worth $150 a piece doesn't mean that other people feel the same way. So I think that they maybe could be really strong images in ways that that they just don't stand out to you, but they stand out to other people in other ways. So maybe don't be so, I don't know, rejecting of his images.
I mostly just jealousy, and nothing against his images other than I am, surprised that people would pay that much for 4x6s. Of these type of images. Yeah, because a 4x6 you can't even really put on the wall to decorate your office.
Sure you can.
Well, you're right, you can. Sorry.
It's quality.
I'm having trouble digesting this fact that he was able to sell this, number of images and this type of images.
Well, clearly there are plenty of people that find his work very valuable, so...
Absolutely. So, I take back all of the poo-pooing we did about selling your images and gain a following and take some fun images and...
Make sure Gawker gives you a shout-out at some point.
Right, that helps. That helps. But again, not that many followers. There's tons of people on Instagram with lots more followers. Although most of those people are celebrities of some sort or another. It would be interesting to see the number of people that are not celebrities, household names, that have more than X number of followers, let's say 50,000. I wonder.
Sure. I don't know.
And in 4 years, when Instagram is completely gone and subsumed by, I don't know, Snapchat. A little hard to sell your prints off Snapchat.
I hope that's never the case.
Oh, so when somebody sells $15,000 worth of their Snapchat images, I can give you a hard time for being so negative about it?
I don't think I'm being negative about the images. I'm just being negative about the platform.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay.
Moving on.
So I think that is actually relevant to the news. It's not really news. It's more of just an article that I came across that was shared on my Facebook feed by a couple different photographer friends of mine. And the title of the article is Leica Photography is Dead. Leica Killed It. And the article, and it's from Leicaphilia. And I think, what is the URL? We'll post it down below. But the article basically gives a little bit of a history of what Leica used to mean for photographers when it first, when it was a new company. And basically these rangefinders were used by photographers as very low profile, very versatile cameras. They weren't at all known for the high image quality that they're known for now. And the author of the article brings the point up that nowadays Leica cameras are, are purchased by photographers, are sought after for their image quality and the optics of the lenses, and because they're such beautiful, they produce such high quality, beautiful images. And then they go, or not all of them obviously, but a lot of them go and slap some sort of filter or preset on them that makes them look, like vintage or old, and basically completely degrades the quality of this $9,000 camera.
So they spent a ton of money on a camera.
Yeah.
With a really nice brand name.
Right.
For those of you who are, kind of catching up with the idea of Leica, it's kind of like the Mercedes of cars. Did you say that?
Yeah.
Mercedes of cameras.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And then slap a filter on and then try to make them look vintage. And so, and I think this isn't necessarily limited to Leica. I think a lot of us fall into that trap of taking really great images and buying cameras that take really amazing images and just basically getting really lazy and slapping a filter on that kind of makes the image look artistic. But where's our vision and where's our intention when we're taking pictures? And I'm sure that anybody can create an amazing image with any camera, one that doesn't need a filter for the image to look vintage. So I thought that it brought up a really good point of less about the gear and more about the art, more about the intention, more about the vision, more about your eye and what you can bring to photography that's different from everyone else. So, I just thought that it was really interesting, and we had kind of touched on Leica cameras on the previous podcast, so I mentioned that I didn't really know that much about Leica, so I saw this article and that kind of caught my eye, and I found it really interesting. So, yeah, check it out if you want to read more about it. Mm-hmm. Again, it's from Leicaphilia, and we'll post the link down below.
Yep. I think, that bit about, we really get focused on gear. I'm building this channel around, a huge part of it around gear, and here is the latest camera in this review of this. And people ask me from time to time about cameras 5-6 years ago. And at the time, those were cutting edge and everybody was highly recommending them. And they could make beautiful pictures. 5 years later, they can still make beautiful pictures. And it really, if you can get your hands on something like a Nikon D80, which, isn't that old. We're talking about digital here, not going all the way back to film, which, of course, film cameras can still. How old is your Contax?
I don't know. I think it came out in the early 2000s.
Okay. So, film camera in the last decade. But, so, really, it's about vision. And having an idea in your head and then making that picture with whatever you have. And I shouldn't say we're not bashing on the use of filters or things like that, but I think bashing on the idea of taking a quick picture and throwing something on it and saying it's vintage and now it's better.
Right.
Yeah. And so I think, we have reader questions at the end usually, but this would be a great time to bring in Lee's question from last week. He commented on commented on the video last week. Do we ever use any textures or overlays on our finished photos, sometimes referred to as presets, in your final photo? And Christine, I think you should answer this as the one who edits most of the weddings.
Sure. Yeah, I use some presets. I use the presets in Lightroom called Replichrome, and it's by Totally Rad, and they have actions and different kinds of presets. The Replichrome preset's supposed to emulate the look of film, and so I've kind of found one that I like and that I've modified to my liking. And I like the look of it. I think that it gives the images a little bit of a timeless feel in many cases. So I do use presets, but I try to keep them just very, very subtle and not super crazy, like no crazy vignettes and no textures. Definitely no textures. I just don't like textures. And yeah, I just try to keep the pictures really simple because it's the content really that, that I think is gonna last, and it's gonna be timeless more so than anything else about the image. So.
And for those who haven't used Lightroom, real quick, presets are basically just kind of like a recipe where you click a button and it doesn't do anything magical. It just automatically applies a bunch of values to all of the settings that you have available to you. Yeah. So it might change your exposure a little bit. It might change your highlights. It might change your RGB curve bit. I think that is where some of these really good presets really do most of the work, because that's hard to do from picture to pictures, go into the curve. Would you say?
Sure, yeah. Okay. I honestly, I don't know. I'm sure a lot of research and a lot of time has been put into developing these presets. They're really, really well done. And, I think it's part of the process to kind of apply different actions, different textures, even different presets, and just see what you like. So I'm not discouraging from doing that, but I do think...
I think it kind of fits into that idea of slapping a filter or an effect on and making it say... Yeah. It's artsy now because it has a texture to it.
Yeah, in an ideal world, which doesn't exist, every image should stand out on its own, without any retouching, without any, not any retouching, but without any fancy filters and things like that. And I can't say that my images do that, and so it's kind of a unrealistic expectation, but. I think it's a good goal to have, to take, a best image that you can right out of camera.
I think it's fair to say that the presets you use, one of the reasons you like them is it's not a huge difference. It's fairly subtle.
Yeah, right.
Okay, yeah. And you also mentioned the timelessness factor. I think that's really important. There are certain effects and looks where somebody can, say, oh, that was taken in the mid-2000s, or that, that was kind of processed. There's different looks. And, when you have a beautiful bride in a timeless dress, I was going to say vintage, but I think vintage carries a connotation of time with it. Yeah. But a dress that is timeless, I think then to have a photo that her grandchildren can look at and think is beautiful and feels like could be taken today, or her parents could look at it and feels like that could have been at their wedding day.
Sure.
Just, a nice, clean, I like to say.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So, Lee, thank you for that question and answer. Christina, thank you for answering it. Good. All right. So a bit of news that I wanted to touch on was the fact that Sigma has agreed to pay Nikon $14.5 million for VR patent infringement. Now, I think this is a good example to use as how all of these different lens makers work, especially the third party. And to pull in a reader question, or a reader comment, actually, I should say, or almost a reader rant, Craig. I'd call it almost a rant. or complaint. Sorry, too much talking. So first off, let's talk a little bit about Sigma and Tamron.
Okay.
When they make a lens for Canon or Nikon or Sony, they basically reverse engineer the technology. Canon and Nikon doesn't say, here's the recipe on how to make a lens that works with our camera. They have to, and they don't have to do it every time necessarily, because these cameras are all using the same mounts for many years, mostly. They reverse engineer it and say, okay, well, this flange distance needs to be X. This electronic contact needs to line up here and receive signal X to move the focus motor or to turn image stabilization on. Or in the case of this article, here's how we're going to stabilize our lens with a little gyroscope inside, yada, yada, yada. And Canon and Nikon never share that information, and so Sigma and Tamron are guessing. And there was even a recent report on the newer Nikons that some third-party lenses were having issues, being 100% compatible. Usually how it turns out is you get some kind of errors from time to time. It'll work most of the time, but then you'll get a lens error. And, that scares some people away from third-party. There's a couple things. It can be a little scary, but one, all of these third-party manufacturers want their lenses to work, and so often offer upgrades and tweaks, and especially Sigma with their little USB dock that you can plug the lens into now gives you a way to upgrade the firmware within the lens. So that doesn't fix anything mechanical, but as I said, those bits rarely change. It's more of the electronic communication between lens and camera. But Craig's complaint specifically is about this VR stuff and the fact that they all use different names for what is basically the same thing, but the suit points to the fact that it isn't exactly the same thing, because if you use the same thing, somebody's going to sue you. So, proprietary terminology for the same feature. Image stabilization being the example. Canon uses image stabilization, IS, Nikon VR, vibration reduction, Tamron VC, vibration compensation, Olympus IBIS in body image stabilization, Sony OSS, Optical SteadyShot, and SSS, Super SteadyShot. So there's the same camera manufacturer using different acronyms. Panasonic and Leica, the OIS, Optical Image Stabilization, Sigma, Optical Stabilization, Pentax, SR, Shake Reduction, Nokia, PV, PureView, HTC, UltraPixel. Actually, Craig, are you sure? I'm not sure about that one being related to image stabilization.
There's a lot, though.
There are a lot.
Yeah.
And here I want to know, are manufacturers trying to make it more difficult for entry-level photographers or any photographers for that matter? What is the thinking around this?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, these technologies are probably all patented, and you would get in big trouble if you tried to use the same name and the same kind of technology, I think. So they kind of have to patent it differently.
And, in some respects, we as the consumer lose in these corporations battling things like this out, because yes, now we've got this confusion and you're lens shopping and you're trying to figure out, is this lens comparable to that lens, and it's got IS and VR, and in some ways we win because you have these third-party makers that are able to keep costs lower. Sigma, I'm looking at you, making beautiful lenses right now, and that's capitalism working well.
Yeah. But you could also make the argument that there's no competition. I mean, who's to say that Canon's technology can't be improved by somebody else if they know, what's going on? Do you know what I mean? Or that the technologies that they use can't be improved by, kind of like open source software, something like that, where different people get to look at the technology and make improvements and collaborate on it to make it better. So I feel like, in some way, I feel like we lose because of the secret,
I think that's a good point.
It's so secretive.
It's so secretive, yeah. But there are third parties making very viable options.
I mean, it makes sense why that's the way it is.
Right. But it's frustrating. Craig, I hear your frustration.
Yeah, we do.
I
do too.
Sigma now hears your frustration to the tune of $14.5 million. Which, I haven't looked at Sigma's company books anytime recently, but it's a chunk of change. It's a chunk of change.
Yep.
You know what we didn't start this video with?
No.
The week in review.
Oh, right.
You're so excited about it. So, just wanted to cut. One is, this was a fun week video-wise because this was the first week in a long time where I had a video go up every single day. So I'm happy about that. It is exciting. We had one of the best critiques on Sunday.
I wouldn't call it the best.
No, which one would be the best if you told people to go watch one? The one the week before?
The one the week before that, I think. The first one that was 30 minutes long. I like that one a lot.
Okay, we'll put a link down to that one if you haven't watched. And you think, well, why am I going to want to watch you critiquing other people's images?
Well, you learn from it, I think. You start to think in the terminology that is used, in terms of composition and in terms of balance and in terms of contrast and exposure and all of those different kinds of elements that make an image strong. And and if your image is critique, it's kind of, it's hard to, have an image that maybe you're really, really proud of be, like, kind of torn apart, although I don't think we've ever really torn any image apart. But it's a good learning experience. I think it builds character a little bit. It kind of, just makes you watch for these things and helps you be a better photographer, I think.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I agree. And, fantastic amount of work in there. Because we had some time constraints on Sunday, so we were a little shorter there. I promised to come back in, and I did that. And that went up yesterday, just me, for 30 minutes. The most images critiqued ever by not by anybody, but by me. And again, good. And I think a couple things that I'm thinking about coming out of this. One is starting a tag for folks that are just beginners, because we got some people putting photos in here that are gorgeous, magazine cover worthy, and there's certainly things that I could still say about them, and it's fun for us to all look at them together. But I also would really like to focus on folks that are like, I've taken this nice picture of my kid at his birthday. What are some things that I could have done to make this a stronger image?
Yeah.
Things like that. So look for that in the future. And the other thing that I'm thinking about is a series called Think Before You Click.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I haven't Googled it yet. I'm sure that somebody else has done it. But it came to me, and I'm using the task list AnyDo now, ANY.do. Love it. It's right there on my phone. I put it in when I was thinking about it. I was brushing my teeth, and I've got some great ideas of videos to make to give you some things to think about before you click the shutter. You probably already figured out what to think before the click was. They're smart. Smarter than us. And you listen, and you comment down below. So I love that. If you've got comments about anything we've said so far, that's great. Other thing to follow up on is the 70D saga. I don't know if it's quite at the saga level, but it's not great. That was that the center focus point with wide aperture lenses at a farther distance, you have a significant difference in your sharpness of your image focusing through the viewfinder versus the live view LCD. The live view being spot on, very sharp images, through the viewfinder, hit or miss, often miss. I've contacted Canon. They got back to me, the kind of standard boilerplate, reset it to factory settings, here's how, take the battery out, yada, yada, yada. Try it again. If you're still unhappy, you're welcome to send it into a service center.
Here's the thing that I thought was really interesting about their email. Well, I didn't think it was interesting. It just kind of stood out to me as a little bit lame. Was that they said, send it in, it's still under warranty. And it seems like it isn't something that was caused by the use of the camera. It just kind of was a bug that came with the camera. So whether or not your warranty still, what would you...
whether or not your warranty is still...
void or not.
Within your warranty period.
Right. Yeah, whether or not you're still within your warranty period, you should be able to send it in anyway, and they should check it out for you.
Right. That's a good point. And they may... This is the thing. One of the reasons why I do usually prefer and recommend Canon over Nikon is their customer service. It usually seems to be better. I've heard lots of good stories on the Canon side and had some good experiences myself, whereas I've really mostly just heard negative things on the Nikon side. This week, actually, somebody said, I have the D7000, I've loved that, but Nikon customer service has been horrible. I'm going to buy this Canon 70D. And I was like, well, actually, there's a little problem right now, so I'm going to But yes, so I think, if I'd been out of warranty and I'd pushed a little, they may still have said send it in. Still, I have to pay for shipping. That's not going to be cheap. Yeah. So it's, and again, if I was, so this, I should say that I'm still carrying the 70D with me everywhere. If you follow my Instagram feed, almost every picture is tagged with 70D 40mm. That combination, sorry, no, not within reach, but that combination is lovely. I love it. It's a nice size. It's beautiful image quality. It's got that Wi-Fi. I can pull images off right after I take them. So I'm really enjoying those aspects of the camera. And in the way I use it, I almost always do use Live View to compose, which is very different from every other camera I've had for years and years, because Live View is pretty slow and kind of painful to use. But there are times I've used it, but just not with the frequency on the 70D. So
we'll keep you posted on anything else we find out about that.
Yep. The other bit of exciting news this week, well, I've got more. I'm not quite ready to share all of the bits of exciting news, but these really cool filters for GoPros arrived this week, and I've been wanting to do kind of all of the GoPro accessories I've bought and used. A little neutral density filter. I'll talk more about it in a second. A polarizing filter. Now, for those of you who, read my blog from time to time, you know that I'm a big fan of circular polarizers, because it is the one effect that I shouldn't say it's the one effect. It improves your images in many situations and is not something that you can easily recreate in post-processing. It removes reflections from shiny surfaces, really makes clouds pop, foliage pop, blue skies pop, and everything pops. And a macro, which I have on here right now, which turns your GoPro into a little macro camera. And, for somebody who poo-pooed AV, we said poo-pooed a lot tonight, for somebody who really is down on shooting in AV mode and is like full manual only, and then to, like this camera where all you do is turn it on and push the start button, I think, it's kind of funny that I like the GoPro so much when I have no control, but then being able to throw stuff on like a neutral density filter to trick the GoPro's brain into thinking that the light levels are low, slow its shutter speed down a little bit, and get some cool effects for driving down the road. Mm-hmm. Car's going to be in sharp focus. The stuff zooming by is going to be much softer, and you can do that in midday. That's how you use that. The polarizing filter, as I said, just using in the macro. I mean, the first thing I think I want to do is time lapse of the top of an anthill.
That would be cool.
I think that would be neat, but we have to wait till the snow melts and the ants return from deep underground.
It's a sad situation, folks.
It is. Just picture lots of little ants having little parties deep underground, like in The Matrix.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's exciting. Lots more to come about those bits. Maybe next week, the week after. We're doing some traveling, so I don't know what the video situation will be like next week. We'll keep you updated. Another bit of news, going back to news, we're all over the place. It's going to make it hard to make show notes with links. That's okay. The new HTC One Plus One phone is rumored to have two cameras right next to each other. So after you take the picture, you can choose the focus point.
Okay.
Does this remind you of anything?
Lytro.
The Lytros. Now, those are those square, rectangular shaped cameras that were all over the news. They hired some good marketing people a couple of years ago. They're still for sale. You can buy them through Amazon, 8 gigabyte, 16 gigabyte. And the idea being, after you take the picture, you can, in the software, it's kind of like a little flash image viewer, choose your point of focus.
Yeah.
It felt gimmicky at the time they came out. It was interesting.
It still feels gimmicky.
That's what I was going to say. It still feels very gimmicky.
So, your question is this the future?
Well, it does. It leads us into the next topic of kind of predicting the future. But, one of the things that I said, and people asked me about it right when it came out, it's like, well, what do you think? And my answer was like, oh, it feels kind of gimmicky right now. But there may be some point in the future when this technology is in our cameras.
Okay. So I'm going to be a little bit of like a party pooper about this because I feel kind of strongly about it. And it kind of relates to what we've been talking about in the earlier part of this episode, which is that we don't need cameras that choose multiple focal points that we can access later on. We need to use our brains and our eye and our vision to create images and to select focal points. I don't think that's the future. I think that's going to create more work for photographers. I think there might be an application for this type of technology in certain fields, but I think in the artistic photography field and in the sort of thing that you and I are involved in and a lot of the people that view this podcast are involved in, I don't think that it's going to be very applicable to anyone. I mean, you know, it's already enough work to take an image and then go into post-processing to have to tweak it for contrast and exposure and this and that. You know, why give yourself another step? Why not just take the image the right way, right out of camera? So I don't think that it's going to be applicable to us. I think there might be some other type of, you know, application for that kind of technology somewhere else.
I'll play devil's advocate.
Okay.
What about you snapped 4 pictures of the bride, special moment sometime during the day, and the 2 that are really, you nailed focus right on her eye, perfect, don't show the moment as good as the one where she moved a little bit and got just a little bit out of focus. And if you could, after the fact, correct that focus by 2-3 inches, that would be the strongest image of the bunch.
You know what? That would make me lazy. That would make me think, oh, okay, you know, I don't have to pay attention as much or I don't have to do as good a job because I can cover my butt later on by choosing a different focal point. And I don't think that's, I mean, call me purist or whatever, but I just don't think that that's, you know.
Okay, giving you a really hard time. How do you think people who shot film 10 years ago thought about digital? Well, I got 12 rolls before, 12 images, let's say 36 images. So, you know, I got 36 images before I have to change rolls. These young whippersnappers coming along with their digital cameras and can just machine gun off.
We're talking about a completely different medium that completely revolutionized the photography industry. We've already seen that the Lytro's camera did not revolutionize the photography industry, even though it seemed like cool technology, you know, for a little while. You know, digital photography, there are people that still hate it, and you know, it doesn't have the same quality as film, and there are lots of things that film is better at, but in terms of practicality and in terms of it being a lot more accessible to photographers, to take out the, you know, whole lengthy process of developing and spending a ton of money on film and developing, and, you know, I think you're comparing different things. I don't think they can be compared.
Okay, just because I want to keep needling a little because it's fun, I bet, you know, let's say when the Lytros came out like 2-3 years ago, I bet about 2-3 years after digital cameras really started to sell, wedding photographers or serious photographers were still like 640 by 480, you know, black and white. The Apple digital camera. Are you all like, what? Apple? Yes, Apple made a digital camera way back when. It was shaped funny, shaped like this, and 640 by 480, black and white. Well, just that I think that wedding photographers were like, that technology is not revolutionized anything, so what? It's not going to be relevant to my field. And here we are 2 years after Lytros and saying, whatever, it's not going to be relevant to my field.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if the technology does make it into the cameras that are used by professional photographers, then fine, then everybody will have a choice to implement it into their own work or not. I do feel like it's gimmicky. I feel like it's just giving us more reasons to be lazy, and we need to be more involved in, you know, creating images than to letting our cameras do the work for us. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I just imagining a robot shooting a wedding right now. That's what I was imagining. So let's move into the next segment. I think that that covered that real quick, and that is let's make some predictions for the future. Gaze into our crystal fisheye lens and talk a little bit about what we think, where we think technology is going to be. Let's not say photography as a whole, because that's big discussions of all the little people who take pictures. And but let's talk a little bit about technology of cameras and where we think it's going to be short term and longer term. As we teased this last week too, we talked a little bit about shooting 4K and pulling images out of that. But before we do that, let's have a discussion about where we think the T6i is going to be. Remember we talked about this a little bit earlier? You weren't so excited about it.
No, I worry that, like these cameras come out every year or so.
Yep.
Well, how many more improvements are going to be made into these cameras? I feel like the T5i wasn't really that much of an upgrade from the T4i. And,
right? The dial went all the way around.
Yay! So, yeah, what more can they do? I feel like they should space it out a little bit longer and really put a lot more thought into what they're going to, be building into these cameras that's going to be truly, I don't want to say revolutionary, but truly an upgrade, more than a name or a dial.
Well, we're back to these. These are not charity organizations. Their goal is to make as much money as possible, for better or worse. I'm not saying that makes them good, but, and they want to eke the steps out. Nobody, I think, is ever happy with the release of a new camera and say, yes, it has everything I want. And these rumor mills and these rumor blogs that make a living on, publishing stats.
What we're doing right now.
Yeah, well, that's true. Making predictions. Get these bullet points in there that I think are some people's wishes and dreams and hopes about the future of cameras. But in the short term, concretely, I'm really curious when I start to ponder, will the T6i have the dual pixel focus technology that the 70D did? So yes, at the Rebel level, the T4i, T5i, T6i, or for you worldwide folks, 600D, 650D, 700D, not a whole lot of changes. Use the same sensor in there, but went to that full-time manual focus, full-time autofocus during video, blah, blah, blah. Will there be a much bigger jump from the T5i to the T6i? Will it take this dual pixel autofocus technology, which makes the live view focusing of the 70D amazing, groundbreaking? That's not just marketer speak. It really is a huge improvement over all other live focusing cameras. Will they have that in the entry-level Rebel?
I don't know. I mean, you had mentioned that that it's a little bit of a firmware sort of upgrade, that it was introduced later on.
That's with the C100, which is Canon's high-end cinema camera. It was released without dual pixel technology, and you could send it in, and it's not clear to me. I don't believe that they completely replaced the sensor. So it was a little bit more than firmware.
Okay.
But it's also not a complete sensor replacement.
Okay. So,
and then it has it. So you're taking an existing camera. So some people were wondering if the 5D Mark III could get it. Is there, is the sensor built in such a way that this could be added on?
Okay. I'm going to say the 5D Mark III, yes. Not because I want it, because I don't really shoot video. But a lot of people do use the 5Ds to shoot video. So I'm going to say in the whatever next version of the 5D comes out, I'm gonna make a guess that yes, it might be featured in that.
So a higher end camera.
Yeah, T6i, maybe down the line,
So the T7i,
T8i. Those names sound so silly to me still, but yeah, maybe down the line. I don't know. It's hard to say, but it does sound like like a professional kind of feature. Although it's in the 70D, so.
Right, and if we look at the price of the 70D right now, it's come down basically the same as when the T5i came out. I think it should be in there, and I've been really disappointed with Canon, and I think they have a really hard time arguing of why they didn't put this sensor technology that isn't really a huge professional level feature. Professionals still aren't going to rely on autofocus for most of their video work. So it really is targeted at your kind of prosumers, semi-professionals, and your consumers. Moms and dads who want to take good video of their kids with a DSLR, which offers better low light capabilities, which we, argued about the camcorder being dead last episode.
So that makes me kind of change my mind. Because you're right. I mean, professionals aren't using autofocus technology. They're using manual focus. They hire people to focus.
Focus pullers.
Yeah. Right? So I'm going to say that it is going to be incorporated into entry-level cameras in the future. Very near future, probably. Because, who's going to be the one to take most advantage of that? Somebody like me who does video for fun, who doesn't really want to spend a whole lot of time, turning the focus wheel to try to get focus on something. So, okay. I changed my mind.
And thinking about Craig, will other manufacturers come up with their own version of dual pixel technology? Dual pixel focus technology. Dual pixel. Hey, I'm going to patent that. Dual pixel. Quick, to the patent office.
All right.
You think so? I think we should have a poll. Should we have a poll?
I don't know if it's a good enough question for a poll.
Well, I want to know, do you all think... Well, first off, I want more predictions of the future from you, and we're going to talk about more in just a second. But I want to know, do you think the T6i, which should come out within the next 4 months, maybe 5, it's hard to say. It's about a year release. The T5i was a little on the close side to the T4i. It was actually under a year. It's been a slightly over a year before. Because there was so little change between the T4i and T5i, we might see a shorter release. But do you think in the T6i there will be dual pixel focusing technology from the 70D? Will it trickle down to these entry level?
Do you think it should have that technology? Do you think that's a better question?
Oh, do you think it should?
Yeah.
Or do you think it will?
Yeah.
We'll discuss. We'll thumb wrestle. Figure out who's right. And there is a link to the poll right down below. Take the poll. It'll be fun. And give us your thoughts on future predictions. So jumping ahead to something like the T8i, or no, let's go a little bit further than that. I do think the direction that we're headed is when we're photographing, we'll actually be videoing, always. Very high resolution, very high frame rate. And when you dump this into, actually first the camera's brain will be constantly watching for the sharpest moment and will mark these and basically show them back to you as photos from the video, and you'll pick the ones you want and you'll put them into something like Lightroom version 8, version 9, I don't know, down the road, and you'll further narrow it down. It will find these X moments. And you'll be able to go in and say, well, no, I want this one just to the right or just to the right. And you'll have almost this infinite choices from time as you video these moments and get photos out.
I can think of 2 different scenarios. I think, first scenario, the technology is awesome and actually really helpful, and it makes our lives easier when we're shooting events or portrait sessions or things like that. The likely scenario that I think, well, the likely scenario in my opinion, is that we're going to end up with a ton of really high resolution images that we're going to have to then sort through and call in post-production and go from, look at 5 identical images and try to pick the best one out of all of those. And if you shoot any kind of photography where you go through images and sort of call down and curate your images, you know that it already takes a massively long time and it's exhausting to call images down. So imagine what it would be like to have multiple identical photos of each shot that you took. So I think that's a likely scenario, But, you know, if the technology actually turns out to be pretty helpful and really useful, then, you know, bring it on, whatever.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Good movie.
I liked it.
Watson. We're all going to have little Watsons. Remember that computer that won on Jeopardy? Or didn't win? I don't remember.
Right.
It's going to help us pick all those images. It's good. I think this would be a great time to share some of your predictions for the future. Rolf thinks that we're going to get rid of glass elements in lenses. And I should say thinks in a way that's not a derogatory. Predicts. That we're going to get rid of glass elements in lenses. And we're going to have flexible lenses that work very similar to our eye for focusing.
That would be really
That's good.
interesting.
The lens changed shape for focusing, and zooming might also be re-engineered around this principle.
Can we put that in our eyes? That would be cool to like kind of have that vision.
Right. Well, that leads me to somebody else's Sapphire. She wants to take photos with her eyes. Click, click.
I feel like photos that I take with my eyes wouldn't be that interesting. Because I can't narrow down or zoom in or isolate anything. It's just all kind of there.
But what if you could in the software afterwards? Post-processing your vision. Patent that. Paul Best wants his DSLR to cook him dinner and do his laundry. But he'll settle for 3D 100 megapixel with a DSLR that connects to another DSLR thousands of miles away, so you can contract a photographer to set up a camera in a different country, but you're at home and you have full control of the shutter. That, Paul, that and my robot idea together, we could be laying on the couch and having our robots take the wedding pictures for us. Robo photo.
How would you know where to put the robot? Like, who controls the robot?
The robot would have little arms and legs.
Okay.
I just wanted to make camera sounds. Jonathan thinks Canon will release a high-tech watch that doubles as a camera on your wrist, like an electronic smartwatch.
That sounds kind of...
Wearables. Do you say nerdy?
Yeah.
Love the idea. Wearables are huge. We're hearing about Apple Watch rumor almost every day.
Oh, God,
Google
really?
Watch. You read the wrong blogs.
I clearly live under a rock.
Yes. And we even have the Samsung Galaxy, or not, they're not supposed to call it Galaxy anymore.
Yeah, but that's really nerdy.
I want one. Daniel wants post-processing focus standard in DSLRs. Post-processing focusing. I think that's exactly what we were talking about. Being able to choose your focus point after the fact. And affordable fixed aperture lenses at f2. Okay.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I like that idea. Auto lens cleaner. Little windshield wiper at the end of the lens. Or, more seriously, nanotechnology coatings that resist grime, cat hair.
Oh, please.
What did that Canon tech say to you?
That's funny. I went to a photo conference where there was free Canon clean and check if you showed up really early in the morning and dropped off your camera. So I dropped off my camera, and the note back from the technician said, "Lots of hair, lots of animal hair. Keep gear covered."
Yuck.
So that was...
All right.
There's other funny stories of actually a photographer friend of mine was helping me clear a hair that was in front of my sensor, and then upon inspecting the inside of my camera more closely, there were tons and tons of hair. It's a little embarrassing, but you know what? I'm going to keep it real and say that I should be more careful with my gear, I guess.
So when you're asked about presets and filters, all pictures Christina takes have a cat hair filter automatically applied.
Built in.
Built in, free of charge. Renee.
I don't actually. Just full disclosure. I mean...
Oh, your pictures are free and clear.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There can be a good bit of stuff going on inside there, and it doesn't actually affect your pictures.
Yeah.
It's Gary. You hear that?
But, you know. Yeah.
I think we mentioned Gary in every... Anyway. Renee says, future cameras would be nice if they could implement your desired photo editing program presets at the push of a button or two. So what if you could have your Replicome presets you know,
built into the camera.
built into the camera.
That actually would be kind of cool because then I could see what the camera looks like. However, I never just allow a photo to, you know, be exported and presented to a client after just applying the preset. You know, there's usually a lot more work that goes into every single image. So,
But it might help you in
but
your
it might
vision.
help a little bit, yeah.
Okay,
And, yeah.
cool. Steven wants a camera with 3D playback options so everyone can capture a moment in their lives and be able to revisit any time in the future.
3D playback?
Yeah, I am a little confused there, Steven, but part of it is, well, maybe you mean like holograph, but they have those, the camera you can clip here, you can wear here, and is taking a picture every X second. And you can just wear it around all day, charge it at night, put it on again.
And then what do you do with that footage?
That's the question. And that's where we need our technology on the computers to catch up and be like, hey, here is 5 interesting moments of your life when that cute barista was checking you out and you didn't even notice.
That sounds unbelievably narcissistic.
All right, here is when, here is when your baby daughter just smiled and Googled at you for the first time.
Okay. I mean, it's
Gurgled.
still narcissistic, but it's in a different kind of
It is, yeah. Okay.
narcissistic.
Allie, one lens that does it all. Sensors will be smaller as pixels get bigger. And he says Fuji will kick some gigantic A ...
I hope so. I want Fuji to do really cool stuff with their cameras.
Yeah, the XT. Well, no.
I'm really lusting
The
after
XT1
the
is nice.
after the XT1.
XT1, yeah. I can't pronounce this name because it's got some
What's the name? Oh.
Cyrillic
Looks
letters in there. Yep. In predicting 20 years from now, 2034, we might have mirrorless medium format cameras with burst rate of 100 images per second.
Wow.
Capable of recording video at some 2,000 frames per second at 4K video.
Wow.
There'll probably be a successor to CMOS technology. I hope in 20 years there is. With better ISO and dynamic range. And are you going to ask Siri about that?
I accidentally pressed the zero button.
And all of our cameras are going to have 7G internet built into them.
7G.
7G.
Wow, big stuff coming.
And those cameras would cost around $1,000. Actually, with inflation, they'll probably cost like $100,000. But all right. So
anyway,
Ahmed wants predicts or wants a camera that can capture dreams or thoughts. That could be interesting. A camera.
How about a book?
No.
Books
A book. Draw on watercolors. Get them some watercolors.
Just a book.
Just a book. Mel, a camera with focus points that covers the rule of third intersections. It says, nah, I'm dreaming. LOL. That's a good, I mean, you can put grid lines up in most cameras, but why it would be nice to have focus points that help you compose in such a way.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that what the 60 whatever focus points that are built into some of these cameras do? Like, they allow you to move the focus point.
They do, but I don't think they really guide you into saying, here would be a good place to focus if you're following the rule of thirds.
Right. But then how would the camera... This is what I'm saying. It's like the camera can only do so much for us because we know what the scenario looks like, so we should know what the focus is and where to put the focus point. Like, the camera can't possibly know because it can't read our mind. No,
but then you look at those cameras that have auto face detection and you can register a couple faces so that if
your faces, sure.
Your daughter's in the picture, it'll be like, oh, I recognize that. That's Susie, and who cares about her friends, but let's just make sure Susie's in focus.
Okay.
So, again, we'll have little brains in there. Benjamin wants to see Canon going medium format with entry-level DSLRs, usable ISO 4000, video at 2K in the next 5 years. In the next 5 years, absolutely. I mean, I'd say that there are cameras today. We shoot with a 5D Mark III at ISO 4000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not, the best image quality,
but
it's definitely
when we recreated the candle shot, what ISO were we at for
4,000.
that? 4,000. Benjamin, the future is now, buddy.
Hi, boy.
Buddy.
Buddy boy.
Douglas just wants a cheaper full-frame camera for the poor generation. Douglas, I think you're going to get that too. I'm going to be talking a lot more about the 6D very soon, which is a cheaper thing. I have more to read.
Are you reading all of them?
Integrated Android operating system into the cameras. There are some that do that. I can't remember which ones. And that's it. Some Miss Scrolly. That's all. Those are those predictions.
Time, it's 20.
I know. Okay. All right, so thanks for those predictions. And if you've got any more, I'd love to hear them down below. Remember, the poll is down below too. We're going to finish up tonight with one reader question, and that is from Bob, who has gotten himself an off-camera flash, an external flash, and finding that inside, bouncing those pictures as we talked about before. So let's just show you real quick, because this is important. This is a way to hugely improve your pictures. External indoor pictures. External flash, bounce it off the wall behind you, fills the room with nice light, takes that flashed look off the person, gets rid of red eye. That's all good. Bob's like, all good there. But when you go outside and there's nothing to bounce this off of, what do you do?
Okay, well, there's a couple of things you can do. One is a lot of these flashes have these little white cards that are built into them that do absolutely nothing. So if you want, you can try to...
I feel like there's been times where I've put this up and had a little bit of... No?
No.
Okay, how about the rubber...
You should totally try it, though, and experiment for yourself, because it might work for you.
How about the index card rubber banded there?
That could work. It's still really small, and it's not going to bounce off a lot of light, so... I think, if you really need to use flash, well, let me just take that a step further and suggest the possibility of using a different light source if you were, like, working with an assistant or something, or had someone near you that could hold something for you.
I didn't give you the full question, but, in Bob's case, he was just trying to use a little bit of fill flash on his wife for a nice sunset picture.
Oh, okay.
So
well, then he should just point it at his wife directly, yeah. And, yeah, just kind of take an ambient exposure and see, what the settings, or what the appropriate settings are to get the exposure that you want for the background, and then dial in, via ETTL or manual mode, the flash exposure. And that should be enough. I mean, it's not going to be the most dimensional directional light, but it's going to fill in.
Could you angle it a little bit, maybe?
No. It's still gonna just...
Yeah. So the problem is that this is such a small light source. And yeah, it spreads out, but it just doesn't spread out enough. And that's why umbrellas and softboxes are nice, because they take this little light source and they suddenly make it much bigger. And then that can wrap around somebody in a much nicer way and give much better quality of light. So, Bob, the answer is there's no really good options. There's all kinds of things you can buy. I've tried some of them. The globe.
Yeah.
No.
Don't waste your money.
The Rogue.
Don't waste your money.
The Puffer.
Don't waste your money. They all just... I mean, the problem is that while they do make this light source appear to be a little bit bigger in relation to the subject, it's still like, these puffer things are still very small. So when you're far away from your subject, they're gonna be much smaller, not that much bigger than the size of this. So you're not actually gonna get a better image unless you're super duper close, like really, really close. So they're not actually gonna help you.
Yep. Okay. So get your manual exposure, figure out what that should be without using a flash to expose nicely for the background to capture those rich colors of a sunset. Then get your flash on, and you're probably just going to really dial it down. And Bob, not trying to shortchange you, but Bob said he basically tried all that and still wasn't really happy with the results. And with a bare flash, it's just going to be tricky.
Yeah, I mean, and I hear you, because bare flash isn't the most flattering, kind of flash that there is. But, you just kind of have to accept that moment for what it is and just make the best of it. The alternative is to bring more gear with you that you can use to create more flattering light. But, if you're on vacation or just having a nice moment, do you really want to spend 30 minutes setting up a shot?
And then the sunset. Oh.
It's gone. And in the moment, and you don't have time to enjoy the moment, and I'm all for that. So, yeah. So I think sometimes we just kind of have to settle a little bit for the gear that we have.
Hey, would you... Oh, actually, you can't reach it, can you? I can reach it. So, that's our show for tonight. Oh. Just a quick reminder that we're giving this away. And I believe I've still got 2 weeks to go. 2 weeks to go. So if you haven't entered yet, there's a link for that right down below. It's very easy. I just need your email. But there are also bonus chances.
Can I win it?
No. I think you qualify as friends or family. Plus, you don't need it. You need the tripod. Actually, do you own a tripod?
I don't think I own a tripod.
Call yourself a professional photographer.
You have like 6 of them. Why would I need to buy one?
It's true. Yeah. So there you go. From a professional photographer, you don't need to own a tripod. That's what we'll call this show. You don't need to. No. Thank you so much for watching. If you've watched the whole thing, thank you. We want to hear your predictions for future cameras. Do you think the T6i is going to have this dual pixel autofocus technology trickle down from the 70D? There's a link to a poll right down below. If you haven't entered the tripod drawing, please do so.
Do it.
Thanks so much for watching. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything except your email, and I won't ever use that to spam you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was a long one.